Good morning, world. I'm Steve Rao, the host of World Edition on Roku and Pod TV, streamed all around the world. And on this show, we talk about global affairs, innovation, the war in Ukraine, and other important pressing matters, and what we can do to move forward in a post-COVID world. Today, I greet you live from Studio C in PBS Carolina, where I was the guest and a political analyst on the show where we discussed the Roe v. Wade decision, the long-term impact that will have on the future of America and other rights, and also the role of the court and how it's become more of a political institution, not immune from the partisanship of Congress and the White House. Before we dive into some of those issues, which we'll probably turn to on Tuesday of next week, where I'll redo some of the PBS structure of the show where we talk about those issues, I wanted to dedicate this monologue today for July 4th. On July 4th, 1776, one of the most revolutionary ideas came to fruition. The thought that a government could be formed of the people, by the people, and for the people. And what was so revolutionary in this concept was that your rights were not dependent on how much property you owned, what religion that you worshiped. You were born with equal rights, inalienable rights, among which were life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This may not seem like a big deal to us today, but at the time it was a mind-blowing, revolutionary concept that had never been tried before, a republic, the Republic of the United States of America. And since its founding, there have been, yes, challenges our nation has faced. Civil War, World War I, World War II, all of the people in our military who died defending this great republic. And so we honor them today on July 4th, and we celebrate American independence and its role in the world order as you watch World Edition. But something has changed on this July 4th, something that I would like us to talk about. It's this notion that I ended the show with today of coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success. Throughout the history of the United States, we've seen our nation come together. When John F. Kennedy laid the vision to walk on the moon, and my late father-in-law, saw Neil Armstrong walk on the moon and was inspired to come towards America as an immigrant, rising to the ranks of colonel alongside his wife in the United States Air Force. We saw our nation come together to defeat the terrors of 9/11. And we've stayed together as a nation through good and bad, from the New Deal, through the terrible turmoils that we faced in the Great Recession, through the other challenges our nation has faced. And we've worked together. But are we able to do that anymore in America? Why is it so hard? Our Supreme Court is now subject to the political turbulence and the political partisanship of Congress and the White House. We can't seem to agree on anything beyond political party. And we have been completely alienated from the very idea that working together is a success. On this July 4th edition, I want to talk about the future of America and the world order. What our panelists think about America moving forward. What can we do here at home? And what advice do you have from us around the world of what we can do to be the leader of the free world? A nation that's inspired millions to build great lives here. A nation built on the backs of immigrants from almost every nation, if not every nation in the world. That's my July 4th monologue. We thank those brave soldiers who gave their lives so this nation could long endure. We wish every American a happy July 4th. And if you're around the world, we actually ask you to be happy for us on this day, because it's a great day for America, which we'll be celebrating on Monday. I hope we can continue to come together, to stay together, and work together for progress in this nation, which is very infant, actually, in its a very new democracy, relatively speaking. Let's get started. And before I do, I did want to say that we are reminded of the people of Ukraine and what they're fighting for. And maybe on this July 4th, we can give them inspiration that, yes, President Zelensky, General George Washington was in much the same position you were on July 4th, 1775 and 76, and it worked out all right for our nation. We're praying it will for you. Let's get started. Today on this show, we have with us Mark Lee, my co-producer, Chris Greco, our military and foreign policy analyst, others that will be joining on this July 4th edition. Mark, welcome to the show. Chris, welcome to the show. I came up with that monologue totally from the heart, didn't have time to write it. Sasha Starr, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So we're going to spend about 20 minutes today just talking about July 4th. Sasha, I know you're Canadian, so this might bore you a little bit, but I think you like America. You work with us, so bear with us. And then we're going to dive into Ukraine a little bit, other issues of the world. And we'll resume on Tuesday with following up on some of the things I talked about today in the news, which is kind of the shifting nature of the court, and a court that's basically expanding gun rights, taking away rights to privacy, taking away rights that have been given to the American people, and really throwing the court into a more partisan category, like the Congress and the White House. But I'll start with Chris Greco, who's a veteran of this country, and we thank you for serving the country. Of what perspective you bring on July 4th as a veteran who served our armed forces, and what does July 4th mean to you? But more importantly, what are your concerns moving forward of our country?
So, Steve, thank you. We talked about, and you talked about in your monologue about working together, right? So it's working together, very partisan country at this point in time, divided, whatever else. But I'll tell you, I spent 20 years in the military, and except at the end where I in the 90s, where basically military was a social experiment. I spent 20 years, almost 20 years, with people that had distinctly different political views. I mean, they were diametrically opposed to my political views. But I'll tell you something. We worked together because we had a mission. So we worked on that mission, and we did the mission as best we could together. No matter what our feelings were about each other, no matter what our feelings were about the political aspect, we worked ahead and being able to do that. A perfect example is Ukraine. You mentioned about Ukraine fighting democracy. I'm going to tell you right now, Steve, and Sasha, you can argue with me till your teeth turn blue. And I'm telling you, you're wrong. They're not fighting for democracy, Steve. They're not fighting for, whatever, communism or whatever else. They are fighting for their country. That is a completely and totally different view of what politics or concepts or theory or any other bullcrap that has to do with that. When you are fighting for your country, you think of one thing: my country. I've got to fight for every single inch of territory you have. And let me tell you something, it has nothing to do with politics. If you attack my country, by God, you're going to get everything you have thrown at you. And I don't care. And something that's funny, because a lot of people sit there and say, well, Chris, what you're saying we need to be invaded. Absolutely. I wish the United States were invaded. I wish it were invaded just like Ukraine. Let me tell you something, Steve. People could care less what color you are, what religion you are, what politics you are, whatever else. If we fight an enemy, we fight him together. And those people that don't fight, let me tell you, no longer part of this country. Move on, move out, get out of here. And Ukraine is finding that out, is that everybody's going to carry a weapon. Everybody's affected. And that's, I think, that's something that we talk about when we talk about July 4th, 1776. The fireworks are not fireworks. The fireworks are basically the British, throwing rockets at us. I mean, this is oh yeah, here's all the nicey fireworks stuff. We're being attacked. I mean, we were literally throwing ourselves off. And if you read the Declaration of Independence, it's very much, they list the usurpations of the king against the colonies. And we never formed the United States of America at that point in time. We formed America based on the colonial aspect. And we kept that. So it's, you talk about my opinion as a military person. I'm going to tell you, Steve, I get it. I really understand your political view on this whole thing. And I do appreciate it. I do sincerely appreciate it. And I respect it. But the Declaration of Independence was basically a declaration of war against Britain. And And the thing is, another thing, and then I'll let somebody else talk. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't mean to hijack your show, but basically it goes something like this. When who wrote that? Who wrote that? Thomas Jefferson, right? Thomas Jefferson, a little bit of Ben Franklin, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But the bottom line is, who are these? Who are all these people? Now, Mark, you're gonna get real surprised about this. They were all white males, right? And not just white males, but white males of money. So they were. In fact, every one of them were British citizens. That's hilarious. I mean, these were not American citizens. They were British citizens saying, look, we have to fight this. The farmer out in the fields in freaking, Pittsburgh or wherever the West was that time, they could have cared less. It was kind of like when they were brought, it was like, oh yeah, taxation without representation, blah, blah, blah. They didn't know. It was like, yeah, okay, we're going to fight. We're going to fight. So all of the people were white male British citizens saying to the British king, screw you, we're gonna do what we need to do because you have pissed us off for the last time. So I think that's what America is all about, is individual responsibility, individual liberty, talking about these areas. And we can talk about Supreme Court later on, but basically that's what we're talking about. Sorry,
Yeah.
long-winded.
No. Let's go to before we go to Mark Lee, I want to get Sasha's perspective. So Sasha, you're an immigrant from Ukraine. You live in Canada. You obviously you have your show Modern Investing with Sasha, chess stars and all that. But what is your objective concern about the United States today as someone looking from the outside in? You get to watch what's going on in our country like other people around the world. What feedback do you have as we continue America? Do you believe that America's democracy is being weakened? Do you believe that we're no longer looked upon the world as, I know this is something that's been said, that Biden's having credibility issues even with NATO because people are saying that he can't even get things right in his own country, with all these things at Capitol hearings, insurrection, and all of this stuff. What is your feedback to us today on the show?
Well, I think you just mentioned all these things together. They are extremely dividing the country. And not that it didn't exist before Trump, but it's all just become much worse and much uglier with Trump in power. And right now, surprisingly, even with these hearings of January 6th, there are still a large portion of Republicans. They're still supporting Trump, but they're still supporting all these polarizing issues from the party line, not from the point of their conviction, what they think is right, but just the party is going this way. But there is a huge danger now exists that if, after all, I wouldn't bet on it, but it's still possible scenario that Trump, in fact, will be indicted. And he would be found guilty of as much as treason. And if that's the case, then all top-ranked Republicans who were behind him all the way, assisting him in any way or so on, they will be all found and guilty and indicted and so on. And if that's the case, then the party which was headed by a criminal and assisted by a criminal, headed by a criminal, all the Republican Party could be recognized as a criminal organization. It's a possible scenario. I'm not saying that that's good. What
yeah, and also there's and before we go to Mark,
and then you do what? So half country is beheaded. They're losing their parties that they are watching for, or so on. And then what you gonna do with all these people? What's gonna happen? I mean, this is a colossal crisis which probably could be avoided, maybe should be avoided, maybe will be avoided. But the clear and present danger is right there, right now.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that it's concerning. And Mark, let's go to you. I mean, what feedback do you have? I mean, what does this day mean to you? You and I are relatively the same age. July 4th weekend, celebrating the birth of America. I know as we celebrate American democracy, we also know the racism that's occurred, the fact that we were a nation that owned slaves for so many decades, the injustices that are occurring today. as a black man, not to bring race into it, but what's your perspective? I mean, you can't not be proud of America. We didn't get everything right, but do we have to keep going back and now sometimes when I put up pictures of the founding fathers on my posts, there are citizens that tell me don't do that. They were racist. But then again, we got to celebrate the brilliance of these founders. Yeah, they owned slaves, but we wouldn't be here in America if it wasn't for them. So how do we deal with that debate?
Well, as I've said before, and I'll say it again on this show, and then I've got to say something toward something that you said at the beginning of the show as well, and it actually addresses something that Sasha has said also. But I've definitely said that, we have to understand our history, warts and all, which means that, yes, you acknowledge the fact that Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and others were the founders of the nation. And all along those lines, they did write the Declaration of Independence, and they did do a number of other things that are some of the principles that we try to live by. But at the same time, we do need to understand some of the historical shortfalls that they had as well. And I think that that's just the case of anybody that is historical. I'm not even saying that some of the great African-American leaders did not have some of their shortcomings as well that can be addressed in discussing them and all along those lines. But as I was telling some friends of mine on one of their shows that they do that airs on LinkedIn and some other kind of platforms, when we've got people that are being attacked for their differences, then I think that that is something that we need to be addressing as a country and trying to find ways that we can be more unified. And I do agree with something that Chris said, which is that not just war, but disasters in general will oftentimes bring us together. We saw that during COVID. We saw that during Katrina. We saw that doing a number of other things that have happened as well. So it can bring people together. And then, if you're in a foxhole, you could care less whether the person is gay, straight, Christian or Muslim, man or woman, or any of those things. You just want to make sure that you are able to survive and make it to the next day, the next week, and all of that. So I do know a lot of Americans are concerned about the day-to-day things that are going on, whether that's they've got enough food to eat, or they've got enough money to get the gas that is rising, and things along those lines. So I think that those are very important factors that we need to look at, and we can even discuss during the Independence Day. But at the same time, we can celebrate the creation of this great nation. And I do think that this is a great nation and all of that. And definitely is one that I am proud to be a citizen of, just like everybody, minus Sasha, everybody else that has been on this particular show, because I think that Nick May Popian as well can say that they are from and all along those lines. Now, you may have other ancestries that you are part of as well and all along those lines. But definitely it's an important holiday. But, I know that some women are concerned because of some of the women's rights that they feel have been trampled on. I know that some people in the LGBT community are concerned because they feel that they are next, and there were some decisions that might give them reason for that and all along those lines. And even some of the Asian communities, and definitely those in the African American community and others, are concerned about what other rulings could impact them if you're talking about the Supreme Court and all of that in that sense. And definitely, Chris, I'm getting ready to wind down, but one of the things I was going to say too, and this is where I was getting to Sasha at, is that today is actually at least in my life, a monumentous occasion, but it's a monumentous occasion that I share with Canada, because today is actually the birthday, and it's actually a milestone birthday. But COVID and everything else, I'll actually keep it mild and all of that. So it's actually the 60th birthday, and I know for a fact that July 1st is also Canada Day. So you were asking what Sasha felt about independence. July 1st is actually their Independence Day as well. So I share the day with Canada. So I definitely wanted to acknowledge that to Sasha. That
but we don't call it Independence Day. We call it
really
Canada.
Yeah,
we
it's
call
not
it
really,
Canada Day.
Okay,
but
well, I learned something every year.
not really independent, but yeah,
Mark,
same.
Mark, is it your birthday?
It is my birthday today.
Oh,
Yes, it is my birthday today.
congratulations, Mark.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday,
Hit the
brother.
big thank you. I appreciate that and everything. And as I said, and then I'm going to get off the soapbox as well. And I think Sasha will enjoy this. I was looking at LinkedIn yesterday, and I said I was going to mention this. And this is what, to me, America is all about. And I'm just going to share a little bit of a story, and then I want y'all to figure out who I'm talking about. And of course, history changes, and some ways that the story is told may be different depending on who is telling the story. But there was a Jewish family, the Karnofsky family, that immigrated from Lithuania to the United States, and they took pity on a poor 7-year-old boy. And this is where the story differs. Some people say that they brought him to their home and he stayed in the home. Other people say that he went back and forth and helped them work during the day and during other times in the evening and all of that. So that's where there are different variations of the story. But they do say that Miss Karnofsky sang him Russian lullabies, which he sang with her. Later, he learned to sing and play several Russian and Jewish songs. Over this time, this boy becomes somewhat of an adopted son of this family. As a matter of fact, he went off and would help the 2 natural kids that this family had and all of that in terms of like collecting junk and doing other things and selling it back to the community and making money in that way. Later, when he became a professional musician and composer, he used some of the Jewish melodies that he had learned from some of his adopted family to create compositions such as St. James Hospital and Go Down Moses. So definitely that ought to give you an idea of who I am talking about and all of that. So later on, this little boy grew up and wrote a book about this Jewish family who somewhat adopted him. And he proudly spoke Yiddish fluently and in memory of his family. And until the end of his life, he wore the Star of David and said that in this family, he learned to live a real life and determination. Does anybody here, including my good friend Sasha, who is a musical expert, have any idea who I am talking about?
No, I do not.
That would be Louis Armstrong, pretty much one of the founders of the fathers of modern jazz. So that is the story behind the history of Louis Armstrong. And like I said, he is definitely, if you look at modern jazz, considered one of the forefront people within that kind of environment. And to me, that kind of support and helping each other, no matter of the differences, is what we need to have more of in this world.
And that's why they called him. That's why they called him Satchmo.
Exactly.
They called him Satchmo because it's Yiddish.
Yes, and he spoke Yiddish all the way until the little latter part and until the end of his life as well.
That's really wow. That's a good story, Mark. That's like the rest of the story, man.
I thought everybody knew that. I was going to say that's Louis Armstrong. Everybody knows that.
Well, I know it's Satchmo's Louis Armstrong, but couldn't figure out what Satchmo came from. But now it's Yiddish. I get it.
Nick Baldino, this is our July 4th edition. Before the last 30 minutes, we're going to get into some things that we talked about PBS today. We're going to focus more on that on Tuesday, day off on Monday. We just talked about July 4th, and what's your opinion on this day? What are you concerned about as an American, a businessman, a lawyer here, founder of this network, about the future of America, and what do we need to be thinking about, all of us, about the Republic of the United States of America?
I think we're in great shape as soon as we get the media out of the way and people are able to talk to each other, and you get rid of these huge left wing and right wing nuts that are dominating the media. You get rid of the lawyers. Hey, speak about this lawyer that you got to get rid of. I'm still stuck on this show that we had yesterday with the Special Olympics. So I just want to go
Miss
over.
Ashton.
Miss Ashton. Okay, I had to do some research on it. There's a form called a Form 990, which everybody has to file if you're not for profit, that shows the little inner workings that no one looks at about them. So let's go take a look at this for a minute. Okay, here's what they spent Special Olympics on fundraising fees last year, $5.8 million. Okay, that's not unusual because what they do is they got to send out stuff to get people to donate, et cetera. And the return on investment is pretty good. They got about 120 million come in because of that. Here's what they spent on salaries last 2020. 22,233,000 was spent on salaries. All those people that she was talking to, not all of them, but a lot of them were on the dole here. Now let's go take a look at some of these salaries. I like this one. Kelly Seeley, the CMO, was pulling over $308,000. Now, this is a not-for-profit. All right. Okay. When you're pulling in $300,000, I guarantee you don't run it like a not-for-profit. You run it like a corporation. Here's another salary that was pulled out. Alicia Balsamo. Now, I wish Kim was here because she defends all the women being wonderful. Okay, and they're being wonderful. They're pulling out some wonderful salaries, $364,000. And then to top it off, the CEO pulls in 480,000. Now,
And
my
Nick,
bet
Nick,
is
Nick-
Ashton, who did all the work,
right?
who did all the swimming competition, who busted her tail, made zero. Would I be right, Mark?
That would be correct.
Okay, and I'll be even further with this Special Olympics. They discouraged her from making any money at all. In other words, anytime there's money making opportunity, it goes to the club. In other words, it goes to Special Olympics, not to her pocket. So the people who are pulling the work, doing all the work, okay, are getting zero. Seriously, all the Olympic people that are training hard, and she won gold medals too, trying to get gold medals.
May I ask just a quick question? Number one, it's all illegal. There are no law being
Oh
broken.
no, there's no law being broken. But the thing is, what they're doing, Sasha, they're playing off people's ignorance. They did this for years with college football
Absolutely.
players,
So
basketball
if
players.
you can pull salaries of $300,000-$400,000, you're not breaking any laws.
No.
You can get away
Good for
with
them.
that. You will be stupid not to do it, because if not you, somebody else will do it.
Hey, look,
right?
I am not disagreeing, and they live in the Beltway in Washington D.C.
Mhm.
This is like minimum wage if you're living in Washington D.C.
Mhm.
So I'm not saying that they shouldn't be pulling these salaries down for the work that they're doing, even though you could argue as a not-for-profit they're excessive. But the thing is, I'm not going to do that. What I am arguing is they're not giving people like her opportunity to make money also in the venture of the Special Olympics. In other words, what they do is they're so driven. They're just like a regular corporation, driven to push the money into Special Olympics, that the Olympiads themselves, all those people that are swimming, all those people that are working hard to play wheelchair basketball, whatever they do, they are driven down to the lowest denominator of zero. And not only that, the whole organization pushes them down like the NCAA did years.
Yeah,
for the
but
college
aren't there any regulation on cap of what the executives of non-profit corporation can take?
No,
There are no gaps?
no. You can take
Really?
you can take 5 million, 10 million. Matter of fact, like I said, there's some that Steve's hanging out with that are making $750,000. You can go check. The form is a Form 990. You can go check any of your not-for-profit. There was one not-for-profit that I didn't work with, but what they did was this. You'll love it, Sasha. It's Save the Children. And he flew around in his private plane, meeting these senior ladies to save the children. 98% of every dollar that went in went to his pocket. He was living in a multi-million-dollar home in Boca Raton. He didn't want to talk to any lawyers. He didn't want to talk to anybody. But I got to spend a little time with him. And he goes, you can make a lot of money on a not-for-profit. You just put all the money into yourself. In other words, save the poor children. And then you play off these senior people's emotions. Oh, I got to save the children.
Hey, Nick, hold on a second. Speaking of saving the poor children, and I'm going to kind of toss it back to Steve with this question as well, since he is the captain of the plane and all. But, the Supreme Court just went on hiatus. They did that on yesterday, and there are already people that are saying that, and of course we are celebrating Independence Day, that the 4th of July has now taken place, and that there are people that are concerned that based on the decisions that they made, that they may continue making these politically charged decisions. And there are people that are looking at voting rights, state courts' power over election, even interstate travel and affirmative action, and laws banning discrimination against LGBTQ people.
Yeah. I'll take a stab at that. And then, Nick, I may come on briefly at noon. I am attending David Price's wife's funeral today. And then there was another family friend tragedy, a 30-year-old. I want to pray for the Thala family who just lost their 30-year-old son to cardiac arrest in Cary. Just so tragic. 2 funerals today. I've never really started my July 4th with 2 funerals, so it's a bit of a bummer. But Nick, I'll be on for just a few minutes.
I'll have to make sure Mark gets an invite to that. I'll send it to you, Mark. We're having
I saw that. I saw that in the room.
Okay, make sure you go to that one, Mark. That's a professor at University of Oklahoma that specializes in civil rights, and I'd like to hear her opinion, Dr. Carla Pratt.
Yeah, I'll come on for a few minutes, and I want to make the point I'm going to make. I'll make again if you can give me the liberty before I have to leave at 12:10 or so. But real quickly, Mark, let me take a stab to your question, and we're going to dive into this in more detail on Tuesday, but that's really what we talked about today. But there's two important points I think we need to understand about, first of all, the court's decision on Roe v. Wade. And that's the notion that conservative courts have traditionally looked at the notion of, and Nick Paladiva has mentioned this, stare decisis. So what does that mean? For those of you around the world, what it means is that you look at the precedent, and that typically the courts, the High Court of the United States, has moved relatively slowly when they overturn decisions because they want to build on the decisions that they've made. And to the extent possible, they can expand rights, not take them away. So Roe v. Wade is more than just the right to life. It's the right to privacy. And these right to privacy rights have been extended to other rights, like the right to contraception, the right to have same-sex marriages, same-sex relationships. And so for those of you watching around the US and around the world, those rights in America are now in jeopardy based on the fact that you're going to roll back precedent. You're going to go back every time. So Mark, yeah, to answer your question, those rights. The other thing is, let's look at a couple of other decisions. We're probably going to be talking about this today. How many of you watch TV and the right to remain silent? You have a right to an attorney, or one will be appointed by you. Well, the Supreme Court just ruled that police officers can be silent on the Miranda warnings, and they will not be violating the United States Constitution, and they will not be subject to civil penalties. So at a time when, you've got violence and brutality and George Floyd and other things like Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, we're actually going to make it easier for cops to do this. And yeah, you still have the Fifth Amendment, which guarantees Miranda. So that's on the table now, right? Affirmative action is on the table. We've been talking about climate change and climate disaster. The court just voted that the EPA will no longer have the authority, because it wasn't given to them by Congress, to regulate carbon emissions from coal power plants in West Virginia versus EPA, right? And then I could go on, but the bottom line is that the second thing I'll say, and I'll close with this, is that typically the court has been immune from the partisanship of the Congress and the presidency, but we've seen over time, over our lifetimes, that the president, that it's become so partisan. So what happens now if the court is subject to this partisanship? And so, in order to overturn these decisions, it takes 2/3 of a vote in the House and the Senate, 2/3 of the state legislature, and 3/4 of the states to amend the Constitution of the United States. You know how many times that's been done in the United States history? 17 times.
Wow.
You know how many times it's been done since 1992? 0.
Wow.
Okay. So I hope that answers your question. So I've given you a lot of information. What do you all have to think about what I've said?
I think we're going to be in may you live in interesting times, Steve. I mean, but see, the thing is, if you read the majority and the minority opinions on these things, there are rational reasons. For example, the right to privacy. Everybody yells up and screams, "I have a right to privacy." Show me in the Constitution where you have a right to privacy. I don't see it. So if somebody says you have a right to privacy, it's not in the Constitution. Now, that when they said about abortion, they said, well, there's nothing mentioned in abortion in the Constitution, and there's no way we can even draw that line. And then the thing is, as we know, it says this: secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Okay, that is in the Constitution. What is our posterity? I don't even think they even addressed it in any of their opinions, but this is in the Constitution. Argumentatively, the posterity is children and unborn children. So even though they don't specifically address, I'll do like Chris Croker. I learned something from him after many years. Specifically address it. They can draw inferences from that. And that's where they brought in the right to privacy. And that's also where they brought in their right to strike down a 100-year-old gun law. Because, there's nothing in the Constitution that gives you a right to conceal carry.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's what it says: a well-regulated militia. Now, why don't we start with a well-regulated militia? It's because we don't want to start with it, okay? But that's what it starts with. And so, like Chris, who's part of our well-regulated militia, if he's walking around with a pistol and he has insurance, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But everybody else, if they're not part of this well-regulated militia, I have a real problem with that. But they've never interpreted it that way, ever.
Well,
And so the thing is,
yeah,
what they do
yeah.
is they
And that,
interpret that anybody can have a gun. So
so the
it
decision of the
is
court.
a political court.
I'll
There's
let
Well,
Sasha-
speaking of the political court, apparently Clarence Thomas is added to the political court because he has come out, and you're going to love this, since we oftentimes talk about what can be said and can be said or not said about COVID and what's going on in that case. Clarence Thomas is suggesting that COVID vaccines are developed using the cells of aborted children. So he's, I guess, trying to convolute the issues. And definitely he said that in a dissenting opinion on Thursday. He suggested that these vaccines might be developed using the cells of aborted children. And that was in a dissenting opinion on a case in which the Supreme Court declined to hear a religious liberty challenge to New York's COVID-19 vaccine mandate from 16 healthcare workers. And like I said, I've got a friend that actually refuses to take the vaccine because of some of their belief systems and all of that.
Hey, Mark, I got some data here to show you guys.
Oh,
So
good.
let's
Adam answered.
throw the data thing up here if you don't mind. Okay, so what I did was the yellow here shows how many the search term, how many justices are there in the Supreme Court? Now this is over the past week. How many justices are there in the Supreme Court? This is what it shows, right? Now I have 3 searches on here. I'm going to get rid of this one in a second to show you the other 2. So that's how many. So people don't even know how many justices there are. They're asking that question. How many justices are there, right? So we're gonna get rid of this one.
Did they ever read the book, The Nine?
Yeah, really, exactly,
Okay.
or whatever.
Right.
This is the blue is God mentioned in the Constitution? People don't even know. Oh, look at this. Look at the search term. And then, was the Constitution written in 1776? There are people asking this question. I mean, think about this, Steve. You know, there are people in the United States that do not know the difference between the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. They have no idea. They think we the people is the Declaration of Independence. No, it's not. They think, in the course of human events is, that's the Constitution. No, it's not. God is not mentioned in the Constitution ever.
But along those same lines, Chris, how many people, if you ask them to give you this definition, I'd love to hear people's thoughts about this, because I'm of the opinion that the vast majority would say yes, that because of the way that our politicians couch things, because of the way sports events are done and all of that, most people would argue that the United States is a Judeo-Christian nation and all of that. But definitely, if you look at, as you just said, the Constitution, it actually is allowable of other beliefs and other religions and things of that nature.
Yeah, it's not in any of the legal documents, the governing documents. But what Chris is pointing out, which is
there's not enough data, is the U.S. a Judeo-Christian nation? There isn't enough. That search has not been done enough to get enough data to show.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, what you're bringing out, Chris, I remember you took constitutional law when you were in high school, right?
College. I actually took
college.
one course.
Why didn't you take it in high school?
I still have the book. Yeah, well, it's interesting. In high school, we actually had civics. We had civics. We actually learned about different aspects.
Like I have constitutional law, and the thing is, there's no reason constitutional law at the basic level you could have at the elementary school. And the reason I say that, and Sasha will back me up on this, for years, Chris, our educational system said, see, I learned that from you, that said that kids could not learn chess in elementary level. Mm-hmm. Now, the biggest group of people playing chess are elementary school kids. They know how to play chess. I am not kidding. You go to these tournaments, 5,000 kids are there, and they're all elementary school playing the national elementary. But our mindset was, these kids can't learn, which is not true. Well, kids can learn constitutional law at the elementary school level. And the Chinese are really great at bringing things down so that their youngsters know a lot of these technical concepts.
Nick, 2 things. One, I'm glad you brought up the Chinese, because I was going to bring them up as well, because actually today is another anniversary as well, because and apparently it's an anniversary that has to do with freedom and all of that, Hong Kong today was turned over to the Chinese, and against some of the more restrictive rules that are going on in Hong Kong, there is a group of young people that are definitely expressing a desire to immigrate. As a matter of fact, last year they said 60% of the young people expressed the desire to immigrate. Now, whether they can actually
60%.
pull that off or not is another question, because as a group, young Hong Kongers
Wow.
are more politically active than their older residents, with a survey conducted in 2019 showing that some 87% of those aged 18 to 29 supported the pro-democracy protests, which have been going on over there, and 63% saying that they had personally taken part. So I was wondering, as one that both you and Sasha that study these world affairs, do we expect a influx of people from Hong Kong, or will they even be able to get out? Because
There
we do know it is a very repressive government.
There already has been. I mean, that boat's already sailed. It's called Vancouver, Washington. Vancouver, British Columbia. If you ever go to Vancouver, British Columbia, literally, that's Hong Kong, America. I mean, seriously. And what happened was, a long time ago, the Chinese people, they're not stupid. They saw this coming. That they realized Hong Kong was going to be turned over to the Chinese. A whole stack of them, a whole big stack of them, came and they went to Vancouver, British Columbia, and they have a huge Chinese community there. Now, what happened was, though, people get duped into go, well, the Beijing was pretty smart. Well, you're going to retain all your autonomy. And so the young people who've never been duped before in their lives got duped. I mean, retain your autonomy. Well, not really. You're being run out of Beijing. So,
So real quickly, I just want to, so real quickly, let's just, thank you so much. I just want to go over a couple of things going on in the world. We just recently had we got 20 minutes left of the show, but so we talked about the environmental decision of the Supreme Court. We're going to talk about that next week. But in addition, just to go through some other, we'll talk about them today, probably, Nick, but the court, real quickly, they've agreed to hear a case that could reshape the 2024 elections, which would give state legislatures the power to set voting rules that states cannot overturn. We talked about that in this show. They said the Biden administration could end a Trump-era immigration program that required asylum seekers to wait approval in Mexico. So we're going to let more of those illegal immigrants coming in now. I think it's called Title 42. Ketanji Brown Jackson is getting sworn in today. And the court's important says, and then with abortion, Biden said he would support bypassing the Senate's filibuster rules to protect abortion rights, but Joe Manchin is a no on that. And finally, we're going to turn to war in Ukraine. Want to get Sasha Starr about what it would be like to appear in Russian court. WNBA star Brittany Griner is appearing in Russian courtroom today. Missile strikes have hit a residential tower in a coastal town in Ukraine, killing 17. And Ukraine continues to go on. And Donald Trump's political action committees paid for legal fees for the hearing. So we got the few more minutes to talk about these, but let's jump into the Ukraine first before you go to the court. Sasha, what would it be like to get into a Russian courtroom?
You're talking about Ukraine or Russian courtroom? I don't.
Well,
see
yeah,
Russian courtroom.
Yeah, Russian courtroom first. What would it be like to go to a Russian courtroom?
I wouldn't envy people who would go these days in the Russian courtroom. You will be definitely convicted, and it's just a matter of whether it will be death sentence or 25 years without parole, or I don't know what else would you expect there. There is no niceties, no lawyers help available. I'm talking about American or British lawyer who would defend it, but they're no use there because their legal system is completely different and detached from any civilized legal system in the world. So it's no help actually. The best way to deal with that, you have to plead guilty. You have to give them all information that you know or you don't know. Just give them anything what they're asking for, and maybe they will just take a pity on you and just instead of 25 years, we'll give you 21 years or something like this. So you might be better off to do just that. There's no justice. There is no rules. There is absolutely. It's incredible why people still have any hopes about some kind of amendable judgment.
But
Oh, I
speaking
got
of
a,
no,
I got a
hold on a
prediction.
second. Speaking of no justice and no rules and everything,
Yeah.
it seems that Germany has done something that is stating the obvious. I love when people state the obvious and all of that, but I love to hear Sasha's take and everybody else. But the German government came out and condemned those Russian missile attacks, or they're saying alleged Russian missile attacks in Odessa, saying that the attacks on the civilians were war crimes. And of course, we do know that a mall was recently attacked as well. If you're attacking whole like places where innocent citizens are moving around trying to get their daily shopping and all going, that definitely sounds like a war crime to me and everything. So is it just that the West and the rest of the world is stating the obvious, which we can all see with our own eyes? And will we ever see any actual criminal convictions from these war crimes, or is this just a lot of lip service that
Mark,
is being given by
a
the
very
various
quick
governments?
A very quick question for people who are dying under this missiles attack. What makes any difference to them whether it's a Russian missile attack or it's alleged Russian missile attack? Can you explain?
Well, like I said, I think that the whole difference is that they are claiming that they did not launch the attack, that maybe it came from like the blue, but that's kind of like the war crimes. I'm going like if you attack a civilian area and all of that, it sounds to me like that is plainly a war crime and all along those lines. But Chris, I did not serve in the military, so definitely explain it to me what if I'm like missing something, because if you're attacking these places that are supposed to be technically off limits, that seems to me that that's a war crime. Now, as to whether you want to claim that you did it or you didn't do it, like I said, if there was a strike, I don't think the Ukrainians are launching them on themselves. So unless they're just claiming that the people from space are dropping the bombs, I don't know where the bombs are coming from other than Russia. But that's just my take on it. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So, let's say I am Putin, right? Let's say I'm Putin, right? And I sit there and I go, you know something? This is all, what the Ukrainians are doing is all a bunch of horse poop. They in fact, we're not doing anything. See, you can see Kiev, the skyline cam. It's Kiev. It's Earthcom. You see any bombs falling on Kiev? You see them? You see any bombs falling at all? No. This is all Ukraine is making this stuff up. They're making it up. There's no bombs falling on Kiev. They're a bunch of liars. And the Russian people have had enough of lying and had enough of this. And we are going to take Ukraine and we're going to, you want bombs to drop on you? By God, we'll make bombs drop on you. That's what we'll do. But you can see right here, see, this is physical proof. There's no problem with Kiev. See, people are going along the highway. It's nice and peaceful. Life is good. You see this, Mark? You see how this goes? You know, and then what happens is, and then people that are here in the United States are far away from this, and they're in conspiracy theories anyways, and they go, oh, that's it. Russian has not caused any damage in Ukraine whatsoever. Look, I see it. There's no damage whatsoever. So the Ukrainians must be the ones who are fighting Russia.
Wait, Chris, are these the same people that believe in the flat Earth and the same people that believe that we never went up to space?
Well, isn't the Earth flat, Mark? I thought it was. It's not now. You're telling me something I don't believe. You see, I mean, I can put EarthCam on anything. I can put EarthCam on India right now and show you there's no flooding in India. I can point different areas where there's no flooding, there's no problems, there's no issue. I can put it to Sudan. What's happening in Sudan today, Mark? What's happening in Sudan? Right? Does anybody know what's happening in Sudan? Let me tell you something. They are under martial law, and they've been under martial law forever. And people are out in the streets protesting. They're getting themselves killed. 8 killed in a current protest. But I can show you Sudan under EarthCam. It looks perfectly fine, perfectly fine. Yes. And that's what people do. That's why we're in the mess we're in today, Mark. That's why people just believe whatever they see.
Well, what do you think about? We're going to talk about the court at noon, but I mean, it's just the one thing I'll say is that
before we get back to that, because I just found out coming back to Russia and everything. Do you think that because Grindr was just?
Oops, sorry. I'll remove that. Sorry about that. Go ahead. I probably screwed this up for you, Mark. I'm sorry. I probably messed up your entire. I am so sorry.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
In our U.S. court and all of that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mark, please.
Muted, Mark. Muted. You muted yourself. I didn't mute you. Oh boy. All right. And we're having, ladies and gentlemen, we're having some technical difficulty right now. Back to Steve Rao and
We'll bring Mark
current
back.
headlines.
So we have a few more minutes left, but I mean, we've talked about, well, let's end with this, Sasha, as we end the week. We're
No,
now,
I'm back now. I was just asking Sasha if there was going to be any sort of trade-off between Miss Griner and this alleged merchant of death, because that is what is being tossed around in certain publications, like the New York Times and others, because they're saying that, hey, yeah, she's just an athlete, but y'all, we've got this other one that is considered to be the merchant of death, and Russia is hinting, just like they did a trade recently between the Ukrainian soldiers and Russia, that y'all give us the merchant of death, we'll give you back the basketball player.
Actually, Russia traded the Ukrainian soldiers who were almost dying. They didn't want to care for them, and they wanted somehow to get rid of them. So instead of just mercy killing, they just traded them back to Ukrainians. How many of them will survive? It's hard to say at this point.
yes, I think it's important. I mean, I did see something on 60 Minutes about, just the whole, how it works of getting hostages back and doing swaps. And
Yeah,
things
I know
like
we
that.
can wrap it up and everything, but Chris, what do you think about this? We're going to give a Russian arms dealer who's serving 25-year prison sentence in return for a basketball player. So it doesn't sound to be like a fair trade, but what do I know? I'm not in.
Well, we gave 5 Taliban under Obama. We gave five Taliban. I know Nick makes fun of me for doing that, but 5 Taliban for one guy who was an army guy and later on determined that he was trying to desert. And it's like, where's our heads? I mean, so you're getting people back, right? You're right. But then we're trading a very valuable asset, and sitting back going, we have just no choice. U.S. is all about trying to bring people home. So, we'll try to do that. The same with Ukraine. I'm sure. Hey, you get your people back. You do it at all costs.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What's wrong with that trade and a couple of future #1 draft picks, Mark? Okay, because the thing is, if you take a look at the reason why I don't see any problem with that trade. First of all, I believe Brittany will be convicted. She'll be given a sentence like 10 years or more in prison. That's what's going to happen. Her only way out is to effectuate a trade. And the thing is, you give them the merchant of death, because who gives a rat's rear? What was this guy doing? He's just selling arms, big deal. And he's like any other rat. You just catch him again. Let him loose and then go catch him again. If you don't catch him again, fine, let him stay in Russia. And then get Brittany Griner back. And that's probably what's going to happen, because other than that, she's going to be eating, what do they eat over in Russia? I had these little
potatoes,
pancakes and potatoes for the next decade plus. I mean, seriously, that is probably what's going to happen. There's going to be...
Sasha was from Odessa, so he probably ate fish too.
Well,
Sasha
yeah.
probably had a lot of seafood.
Sasha was in the military, the Soviet military. He probably actually got fed something rather than the Russian gulag, which has got to be one of the most miserable experiences, especially for some lady who's 6'8". So I believe that's what's going to happen. They're going to effectuate a trade.
Nick, but
Taliban, 5 Taliban, who gives a rat's rear? We gave them the whole bloody country. Chris,
the
whole country.
There could be escalation on both sides, in US and in Russia, to catch as many targets as possible for trade.
Yeah.
So
there you go. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we'll just whoever has American passport still in Moscow, and I don't believe why anybody holding an American passport
would be in exactly.
Moscow. It must be
I was
crazy.
thinking about going back and visiting again. I was trying to get a visa.
Yeah, you go ahead, Nick. Good luck with that. Yeah.
I was going to go negotiate with Putin about ending the war.
There you go.
But Nick, you've been trying to get all these other countries in the world. You told me that Pod TV was a conspiracy to us to actually literally take over the world and all that. And I remember back in the day when Anki was on, you were mentioning all these different countries
Sasha
that you personally wanted to take
Russian,
over.
and the people in Russia actually watch our bloody shows. I don't know how they do it, but they actually watch our bloody shows. It's really weird. I'll have to get a head count how many hundreds of Russians watch our show. I don't even know why. You know, but it is
Well,
what
Mark,
is out there. The
let me
internet
know when
can't
we're ready
stop
for
it.
closeout.
Because they want to have once in a while break from Russian propaganda and see something.
See U.S. propaganda. Okay.
They want to see U.S. propaganda, and they know that Sasha is a star. Sasha is a star
Sasha's
in
a
Russia
star.
and the Canada
I think
and
we ought to have
U.S. So
another
they want to see
Rocky
the
and
star.
Bullwinkle show, and it's our Sasha. You know, as the guy. Remember Rocky and Bullwinkle, Nick?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Rocky
You know,
Bullwinkle.
and have Sasha in
Yeah.
there rather than Boris
I-
Badenoff.
I have to get out of this program, go to another program, figure out
Me
how many
too.
Russians.
Yes, we got to do that. And actually, I'm going to toss it off to Steve because Steve's getting ready to do his
Yeah.
close out. And at 11 o'clock, we've actually got that other show that you're talking about because it'll be Russia, China, and Ukraine. We got to a little bit of that, but they will dive deeper into it. Who do you have on that show? Do you have Ben coming on, or do we have a report from Kiev and our friend Ivan, who we've not heard from?
Yeah,
in a while?
Ivan will be there,
Okay.
and probably Chris will be there, myself. So
I
we'll
look
try
forward to
to
coming back on. I'd like to come on next week. I love that show. Shasta does a
Okay.
great job.
Yes, he
I'll
let
does.
you know.
Well, let me go for the closeout, folks. I'm going to head
Please
out.
do.
I've got I'm
And
Thank
running
you.
out of battery
Bounce
on I'm running on battery on my machine, so we're gonna head on out. But as we close out, my final take is that we wish everyone a safe July 4th. If you're living in North Carolina, please remember that we are going to be registering to vote. Today is the last day to register to vote in the July 26th primary election. So I'm going to be putting a quick video message up on that. And remember, as a nation, let's come together, which is the beginning. Let's stay together, which is progress. But let's work together to put our differences aside so that we can have more success in America. We want to thank every soldier who gave their lives so this nation could live. And we know that the United States of America is going through a turbulent, divisive, polarizing time. Our Supreme Court making decisions in a matter of days that could roll back not only the right to life and the right to privacy, but affect other rights. And in the time of climate change and gun violence, the courts expanded gun rights. At the same time that Biden passed a bipartisan gun law, they've made it hard to regulate climate change by reducing the ability of the EPA to regulate carbon emissions from power plants. So you can see that America is in a tough state, what I would say gridlock, turbulence and gridlock. But if there's anything proof, never count the United States of America out, because as President Biden has often reminded us, our nation can be defined in one word, possibilities. And that's what July 4th is about, possibilities. The possibilities of a democracy for the land of the free and the home of the brave, and an inspiration to millions around the world who've come here and built great companies, built great lives, and inspired others around the world. Let us hope we can continue to do so. From our family to yours on Roku TV, we wish you a happy July 4th. See you on Tuesday.